everyone, Vanessa here with Paradox Comedy. I'm going to be interviewing Sarah R.W. today, and hopefully we will not have any distractions or interruptions because there's a lot of stuff going on in my house. So we shall see how this goes. Sarah R.W. is she's literally top 5 favorite comics throughout San Diego. She has been a recurring guest on Tasteless Gentlemen podcast. She's performed on stages across Los Angeles and San Diego, including the Comedy Store in Hollywood, the La Jolla Comedy Store, Madhouse, ACC, Laugh Factory. She's also been booked on, she's also performed at the very prestigious and well-known and very reputable show Don't Tell that we all love. She's also co-produced Good Jokes comedy shows at Good Bar and also Culture Court in LA at the Comedy Store as well. She's also a podcaster, you guys. She does Two Jews, One Gay with Samantha Schwimmer, and it is very funny. Although, admittedly, I have not seen it recently, but on here, I just accepted. There you go. Maybe not. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining on. Yay, Sarah.
Hi.
To see you.
Thank you for that warm welcome of all of my accolades.
Isn't that kind of weird though? Because I know that so Sarah was one of the very first interviews that I ever did with Paradox over a year ago. And it's like you just kept like racking up like all these shows. But from what I remember from that is like you had just gotten started in comedy again. Like,
Yeah, it's so funny because, yeah, when we last spoke, I had just kind of thrown myself back into it, had just started working at ACC, I think, again, which helped throw me back into things. I feel like so much has changed. I'm so much angrier now.
so out of all these, what do you think is attributed to like this launch? Besides, you're just hilarious, right? So you're very funny. I know that something that a lot of comics struggle with is the motivation to even get booked, and we'll talk about your anger and where that comes from. We've got an hour; we can
Yeah.
tackle it, right? So yeah, I mean, where do you get that like motivation? Is there anything that you're particularly proud of over the last year that you've done?
Um, it's when it's funny that you're asking me where I get my motivation because I feel like I am one of the least motivated people I know. And like the theme of like the last few months has been like, how do I address that? Like, I think my brain is not made for this world and I have to like hack it into performing well. You know what I mean? Like I want to stay at home all the time. I don't want to mic. I don't even want to write a lot of the time. I like have debilitating social anxiety. So I think what it was that helped all of that was one, finding a sense of community really changed the game for me. My first bout with uh stand up was really lonely. Like I purposely didn't make friends because I thought like, I don't know, I was self-conscious about it. And finding community helped just make it more fun to work at this, art form that's really unforgiving and really like, it's hard sometimes. And then I think I got really lucky with some networking. Uh, comics always talk about the hang and everything like that. I was able to cross paths with people who I really enjoyed collaborating with. Um, like Keith Johnson, who like co-producer at the store, for example. And so then I started working on things that felt like maybe a little bit above my pay grade, but things that really excited me. And so that was a motivation. So I think the things I'm most proud of, probably Culture Core and having been brought on as that part of that team and still being there, that's been great. And I think like little things like I have a 10 that I'm proud of, I'll probably hate it in like 6 months, but right now I'm
Yeah. So I remember last time that we spoke, you were just getting back into comedy and you were just starting the producing of shows, right? So what has been something that you found to be, well, I know that you said the sense of community that you've received, right? That you kind of tapped into. What is one of the like the challenges that you've kind of discovered in producing shows that you didn't really expect?
yeah. One like producing is just hard from the fact of like getting butts in seats. Like
Mhm.
code very few people have cracked, and it's and when you're the producer, you take it so personally. Like you want the comics that you've put up to like have a show worthy of their time. And when you're on a show, there's five people in the audience, you're just like, gosh, this feels bad for everybody, and it feels like a failure. Another thing that I didn't anticipate was like the politics of producing, like the quo aspect of it, and I'll put you up if you put me up, or I'm not putting you up because you've never put me up. I guess that's just not how my brain operates naturally, and so that is how a lot of people approach these things, and I get it. Like we're all trying to like have a seat at what feels like sometimes people. But so like the politics of it is I find very simple and fun. Um, and then like when I was doing Good Bar, which Good Bar or Good Jokes is no longer like a weekly show. A weekly show is so hard, and like also performing regularly in the same room like that for repeat people is like so humbling because you're like, you guys have heard everything, every joke I've ever thought of, and like you've seen it bomb a million times. I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna work on it. So I think that was really humbling. And then producing a show like Culture Court, which is not just straight stand up, and there's like this more creative theatrical aspect, and like so much fun. And it's made me remember like why I was kind of like a theater kid. And it's like the best of theater and the best of stand up together has been like a really fun.
Yeah, so that was one of the notes that I had written because I was kind of, I think, surprised by that. I didn't know that last time I'd interviewed you that you kind of gotten your start in like theater, right? And then like you're really into musicals, which is cool. And so I was like, oh, okay, wasn't expecting that. But can you describe like what the show of Culture Court is like?
Oh my gosh. So Culture Court is a monthly show right now that we're doing at the Belly Room in at the Comedy Store. Pretty much what it is we have two judges who are our hosts. They come in full wigs and you know gowns, and it's Keith Johnson and Matt Lockwood. We're both originally San Diego comics who now are Los Angeles comics.
And funny comics. They're very funny comics too.
Very funny comic. I'm really lucky to be able to work with them, like learn a lot from them. And it's interesting having the San Diego perspective because they've made that next leap, so to speak. So I have a lot to look up to. But each show, each culture court has three cases, and they're taking on cultural topics, debates, and it's argued over by um stand-up comics. So like one of our recent cases was like the LGBTQ reorganize the acronym case. So we had like stand-up comics of each queer, group, like a trans comic, asexual comic, lesbian comic, like argue like where they should be. That was really funny. We decided that like lesbians are just gay, so we got rid of L. And we've had short king defamation where like short comics kind of like doing for like all of the hate that they get for being short. And so really it's just like every single month a completely different show. We try to keep it really relevant. Um, and it's like comics being able to collaborate together, which is rare. I feel like being a comic is like really lonely usually. And it's like them being able to work on new material and like step out of it. So that's culture court. And then the
Awesome.
audience gets to decide what the cultural ruling.
Yeah, what has been the overall like response that you get from your audiences? Are they like, oh my gosh, like are they new to comedy? Are they like fans?
A lot of so we have some fans like who come regularly, which is fun. A lot of the time they're like, this was some of the most unhinged shit we've ever seen. Literally had a girl drink her own pee once on stage.
I think I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but like I think by and large, it's one of those things where it's so hard to tell someone what it is or to convince them to go to it. But once they see it, they're like, oh, there's nothing else like this really being done in the stand-up space. Our reception has been great. It's hard, again, being like a person that is getting that that like I really
Oh my gosh, I just lost your sound. I cannot hear you.
oh no.
Okay. Um, yeah, so how do you juggle doing working on your own act, right? Writing, and then you're also producing, so that means a lot of promotion,
Yeah,
trying to actually sell tickets.
yeah.
And then also performing and having to book like your own shows. Like, do you have like a system where you're just like, I found that some comics tend to be surprisingly organized, and
Mhm.
then some are not, but they somehow get like everything done. And it's such like a time oriented, like schedule oriented thing. Like you can't really fuck up without messing up your reputation.
Right. And the thing is, I've had to put my tail between my legs and I have dropped the ball before, and it's a really, really shitty feeling because really at the end of the day, the only person it compromises is yourself, like you said. Um, I'm still trying to figure out what the special sauce is to keeping my head above water. Honestly, I really, really struggle with it. And like I think a lot of comics can probably identify with this, but like my mental health isn't always the greatest. Like I'm just a naturally depressive person and I have pretty bad anxiety. And so those two things with like sometimes prevent me from like grinding the way that like comics need to grind in order to really continue to self-improve. Um, but I'm constantly trying to get better at like
Oh no, I lost you again on your audio. Can everyone else hear her? Is it just my phone? Unless that last. I can't hear you. Audio isn't here. Okay, great. It's not me. It's like, oh no. Okay, now face out also. She's gone. Oh no. Okay, we lost Sarah. If you guys do have any questions for Sarah, feel free to put them in the little question box also. We get her back on. Oh, so Sarah left. Okay. Yes. I'm accepting you, Sarah.
I'm sorry.
Here you are. Okay, great. I can see you and I can kind of hear you. No, just kidding. I can't hear you, but maybe talk.
Hi. I don't know
Okay.
what's going on.
Okay. Melissa, I see you. So let's put Matt Rife on. Um, okay. So sorry about that. Now I can. Okay, I think that we're connected. We're in clear now. Um, so we were talking about, oh yeah, the schedule and the mental health and the
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a good system. I'm constantly like buying new planners or like on like organization TikTok, like trying to figure out how to put a method to my madness. Um, it's really, I will say being unemployed has helped. I have a lot more time now that I don't have a full-time job. So, you know, if you're struggling to keep your head above water, just get fired is what I say. But no, it's just like trying to stick to a calendar and you I do fuck up all the time is the answer.
Yeah, and so if we can go there, like, I mean, mental health is obviously an issue in the comedy community,
Yeah.
and I wonder, like, are is that something that's spoken? I mean, I hear about it, but I'm not a comic, right? So I wonder, like, do comics openly talk about it and like try to get help? Are the people like reaching out to each other and supporting each other and getting that, or is it just like,
Yeah,
oh,
you
you're
know,
on your
it's
own?
funny because I think for a while I was kind of like not secretive, but I didn't want to burden anybody with my mental health stuff. And also like I don't know if you can identify with this, but like sometimes when you're trying to describe your mental health state, you feel crazy. Like you're
Mhm.
like, I don't, there's not actually like a thing happening to me, but like I feel profoundly sad or unmotivated or down or hopeless. And saying it out loud makes me feel dumber about it sometimes. But then I had some comic friends like reach out and be like, yo, I noticed that sometimes you go AWOL and you can always like talk up to us, like if you, instead of just like disappearing. And
Mhm.
so being given that permission has helped. Um, I do think we talk about it. I think the issue is with comics, we like joke about our mental health more than we like do productive things to address it. Um, I know you know Jacob Johnstone fairly well. He and I both have recently stopped seeing our therapists. So like we're thinking about dressing up in suits once a week and being each other's therapists. And just like doing it for the bit, but also because we need someone to talk to like objectively, but neither of us can really like afford it at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think transparency has been my biggest friend when it comes to like mental health stuff. Luckily, like I have a partner who I can rely on emotionally a lot. That hasn't always been the case, and that led to darker days. But yeah, I mean, there are times where like my comedy does take a big hit because like I just am mentally checked out due to mental health. Um, Sometimes, like I love to rot in bed
Mhm.
for like days at a time, and that's not a very creative thing to do. That doesn't fill my creative cup very well.
I guess.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's
I
like
know that you and I
good.
have like bonded. Like I'm a big napper. I'm a sleepy girl. I like to
Yeah.
sleep, which is also hard because I'm staying up often until like 2, 3 in the morning. And so then I sleep in really late, and then I feel shame about that, and then it's like a cycle.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely understand that. I wonder, especially, well, I wonder, I'm concerned sometimes, I guess, because it is such a validation seeking like
Yeah.
activity, right? It's
Yeah.
like this is something where you are relying on an audience to say that you're funny, that you're okay,
Yeah.
that you like pass. And if you're already kind of struggling, to even get out of bed and get to the club to do your set, I wonder like how do you even like what is the internal dialogue with
It's
yourself?
hard because when you're like, you know what, like I made it here, that was hard. And then you get up and then you bomb, you're like, oh my God. It's almost like your fears or like the demons were right. Like you convince them like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done this. I will say though, like as you mic more and you like do the shitty rooms more, you get used to that. You get your response system isn't as reliant on like those moments, and you start to redefine what a win is. Like a win is just working on new material. If this is all new stuff, the win obviously always is killing, but like there's wins in between killing and like failure, and that can be working on something new or finding a new tag or finding a new way to open up about a topic. Like those are all wins when you're like just working on building out a joke, that I think we forget about. Like sometimes we just think the only win possible is like having an undeniable best set, and like that often doesn't happen, so you have to give yourself reason to keep going.
I love that so much. The redefining a win. Because it is like sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, okay, yeah, maybe first of all, maybe there weren't enough people in the audience to laugh at the joke. Or like maybe, it's just a newer joke, but hey, you're writing. Like that's the important thing. And you're getting paid.
Yeah, and when I was working at ACC, I recently left ACC, but when I was working there, like there were a couple shows that I was put on as the host for like comics who couldn't be more different than my brand or like who I think my audience is. And one of them was Nick Mullen, and who I don't know if you're familiar with. Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
but it was like all dudes, like broy dudes in the audience, and it was me and Gabby Lamb opening for him, and like they just didn't want to hear from us. They just did not want to hear from us. Another one was, oh, I don't even remember his name, but he was like a Fox News commentator, like very, very right and political, right? So also very, I got booed for saying the words NPR. on that. And so like for those shows, like a win wasn't like I'm not gonna like crush. Like I'm not gonna, at least where I am now, like I wasn't able to like, but like I was like shadow boxing up there. Like I was working hard. I
Yeah.
got laughs. Every laugh I got, I knew I like deserved. So the wins there were not like crushing, but it was like I got laughs from this audience who like does not care for my perspective, did not want to hear what I have to say. And that sometimes feels better than like, you're in a room with exactly who your favorite audience is and like everything's crushing because you don't have to work as hard.
Yeah, I would say so. If you're able to kind of like convert someone to like your humor in a way that's not really your target, your ideal audience, that's amazing.
It's sad how like getting a guy to laugh just feels like a win so much of the time. Um, and like I've talked about it before because it's like, especially in San Diego, the audiences are very male, and when women are in the audiences, it's often as dates to like a guy brought them. And I remember before I was a comic going to comedy with my boyfriend at the time, and if there was like an attractive woman making him laugh, it pissed me off so much. So I get it. I get the struggle when I'm on
Oh,
stage.
that's
And
so funny. I never thought about that. Yeah.
yeah, I remember there was this like gorgeous blonde. She's not even a comic anymore. And she wasn't local to San Diego, but she was like 21, a blonde, tall, all the things I'm not. And my boyfriend was cracking up, and I like turned to him and I was like, what the fuck is so funny? Like, and like she was just doing her thing. We were at a comedy show, but like it was a big thing. Um,
Was she funny?
yes, like she was adorable and funny. Like that was what is annoying, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if she was a delight. But so when we do get women rooms, like if like maybe the headliner is a woman, or even like a queer room, I really like performing for queer rooms, queer spaces. It like you don't have to like bro down. I find that like I am code switching even within my own set sometimes, and maybe that's like a weakness of mine, and maybe like my journey is to find out how like I can still sit in my authentic voice no matter who's in the room and make people laugh. But sometimes I do feel like as a woman you have to like be like I'm a chill girl, even though that's like categorically not what I am. Like I'm an anxious, needy, high maintenance person.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, thinking back on it, I have seen you perform in front of like a ton of very diverse audiences, and you are
Yeah.
just one of those comics who can make the room laugh. You were talking about bombing earlier, and I'm thinking like maybe at a mic when you're working out material, but as far as your show stuff, like you're pretty on point, and you're able to like,
I
um,
try to be consistent, and I don't take as many risks maybe as other people do. Um which is something that like I battle with, but I think it's coming from like a theater background. I want it to be a full realized thing before I bring it on stage. Like I want it to be like a performance. And so I try to come with my as refined as I can. Like I rehearse, and I've been made fun of by some comics who like are the kind of comics who really just like sizzle on stage and are able to stew and feed off of that energy. I like to know, all of my beats. And
yeah.
it's really fun when something surprises you. And I want to get more into that. But I think because of my background, I tend to be I try to come a little bit prepared and not as on my back foot. And you know what? It's interesting having seen like really tried and true comics, like people who are way above, me, and seeing the differences. There's the people who really do write on stage, and then there are some comics who like are mathematical about it and do the same hits and beats and word for word every single show. Ali Wong is kind of like that. She's like very just like scientific almost in her approach. And so it's nice knowing that there's different lanes that you can be in, and not any one of them is better than the other.
Yeah, it's actually just whatever is making you better, really. And I know I remember hearing Mark Norman saying that he used to like rehearse on top of his apartment building, and because it was
Yeah,
so embarrassing, like he was doing it in his apartment, and somebody would like see him like rehearsing, so he would
yeah,
try to get out in the apartment building, but then a neighbor would come up and see him, and he'd be like, "Oh my God, it's so awkward." I'm just, what do you look like when you're rehearsing stand-up comedy? Like you're just like
yeah.
talking to yourself, basically.
Yeah, I
Um,
pace in my
yeah,
backyard, and we have neighbors who have like decks that overlook, and I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is.
it is what it is. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's working, right? It's making you funny. It's getting you good. It works with Mark Normand. But
Yeah.
also, how do you feel about like crowd work? Like, how
Uh,
do you? I know it's such like a. I don't know. It's a word. It's a
yeah,
word in comedy.
it definitely is taking up space, crowd work right now.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not a crowd work comic. Um, and it's so funny because like I consider one of my better skills just like as a person to be like conversation. Like I love having conversation with people. I'm good at talking. I watch your stories of you talking about being an introvert, and I'm like your nightmare. Like if I was your coworker on that trip, like I would just be chatting nonstop. Yeah, I just like talking. But when it
Okay,
comes
just
to
to clarify, she was talking about very like I was checking in
boring,
like every 4 minutes to see what she was talking about. She was just like rambling about nothing.
yeah,
You
and
say
I'm sure
interesting
most people I don't want to hear it.
things.
But um but when it comes to stage, like I said, like I have this idea of how it should go in my head and like what my marks are, and so crowd work takes me out of it, which I sometimes need to do to like flex that part of my brain, but I don't enjoy it. It's one of those things like it's like working out for me. Like it's good for me. I need it. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. Um, but but it does. I see its role that it plays. It loosens up a crowd like nothing else does, though. Like you can really access, you can like unclench the buttholes of the crowd by like being like, oh, we're just people, and I also just will have a normal interaction with you. Um, it can disarm people. So I'm trying to get better at it. I'm better if I do it of like kind of faking it where like it's kind of built into a premise,
Mhm.
or like I ask a question that's kind of pointed, that whatever the answer is I can pivot into then my bit, but then that I find gets a little bit better buy-in, because they're thinking about themselves within the joke then, because I've
Yeah.
opened it up to them. So I do it as a manipulation tactics more than I do it as like an art form. I admire people who do it. I don't hate crowd work. I know some people are like it's lazy. It's just not what I have found to be like what I do on stage very much.
Yeah, I mean, there are some comics who are really good at it, right? It is interesting because it's difficult to be that, fast, that quick-minded on the spot and make it funny and
Hmm.
make sense and not just be totally insulting or whatever to
Right.
whoever is yelling at you on the stage. But I guess, when it does work, it works. But overall, like, it's not my favorite type of comedy to see all the time, unless it's a comic who can,
And I've seen the people who are like crazy at it, like Harlan Williams was one of them. David Tell is another one who like Big J is another one who like I have no idea how they fired those synapses so fast and access them. I'm the person who in real life also will leave a conversation and then have every smart retort and come back, like I stew over that, but I'm not in the moment person. Like that's why sometimes I feel like the best way for me to write is in like a text conversation, because I'm quickest when I'm able to, or like I'm wittiest when I'm able to think for a second and like not have the pressure of responding like immediately. um so like I think it's very impressive. It's just like its own discrete skill set, I think. And like it's, yeah, I can often when I try to do it I'm just like abort mission, this was a mistake. Go back to your little
well,
jokes.
I mean, that said, you are still like a favorite guest on Tasteless Gentlemen, right? Like
Oh yeah,
people
those
love
very
when
nice
you're on.
boys.
Yeah, and so it's like when you're on there, that's like kind of off the cuff. Obviously, you're not in front of an audience. like
I
super
think that
close
might be
friends.
the difference, is that it feels just like a conversation. And like my dad says, I just like hearing the sound of my own voice. So I'm just like excited to be talking.
Yeah. Well, so speaking about podcasts and Aaron, we will get to you in a second. And I do love his podcast. If you guys haven't listened to it, it's Comedy or Worse. And you have your own Two Jews, One Gay
I know.
with Samantha Schwimmer, who I know
Yes.
well. So I'm sorry if I'm a bad fan. I actually haven't listened in a couple months, or you didn't put
No,
anything
we
out.
stopped. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Straight up, Vanessa, this is what happened. We started season 2 with Two Jews, One Gay earlier, like a few months ago. And we decided, this was months ago. This was months and months ago, like summer. We decided, wouldn't it be interesting if we talk about Israel and Palestine? And
Yes.
we have very different views on Israel and Palestine, Sam and I. But what's beautiful is like it's such a fraught discussion, but like she and I are really able to remain friends, and it really is a dialogue. Like we just love each other and respect each other. So it doesn't go to that vitriolic place like it often does. So we're like, this would be interesting. And we're like both kind of absurdists. We're like, we're not gonna solve anything here. And like I was wearing like blue face paint. Like like we were trying to like be a little like silly about it. We published that episode 2 weeks later, October 7th, and like the current thing happens. So I'm convinced Two Jews, One Gay caused it. I'm like, we just had to open our fucking mouths and talk about it. Like we just had to give our hot takes on Israel and Palestine, and we cursed it. And we literally haven't been able to like bring ourselves to do an episode since Israel and Palestine has gone crazy, because it's like been like I'm like smiling and laughing. It's not fucking funny. It's
No.
horrible what's going on, and I don't want to talk about it like politically. Like I have nothing to add to the discourse at this point. But it's been a really, really sad, sad time, a really horrible time, a really an emotional time for anybody who's involved or feels closely to that region. That like it feels weird to go back and be like, we're just gonna ignore. Like we'd have to address it, and we're like, and what does that do? What value does that add? Do we need more people addressing it on the internet right now? And I think both of us feel like the answer is no.
Yeah.
um I've also like, it's weird, like I've also taken out a lot of my Jewish bits over the last few months, like because I just, and it's not even because like I'm afraid, it's because i am I don't want to be telling a joke that has nothing to do with the conflict, but then I say I'm Jewish, and then just watch the audience's eyes glaze over as they think about what that implies. It's just
Right.
like, I'd rather not have to dig out of that hole or like have to deal with that. And maybe that's like weak of me, probably is. I am often a weak person, but like, yeah. So being a Jew right now as like a whimsical fun thing feels hard to do. And so Two Jews One Gay has like taken a pause at the moment. um
Did you guys
yeah,
remove that episode?
no, it's up. If you guys want to
Oh.
see us joke around about a very delicate topic, mind you, before this all happened, feel free. It's up there. We end it like singing the Israeli national anthem. It's very bizarre. It's very
Wow.
bizarre.
Oh
um
my gosh.
but like, but beyond that, beyond everything that's going on right now, as like in the Jewish and Israeli and Palestinian world, Two Jews One Gay has been such a fun project. And also like it's, I told you, like I like women's spaces and I like queer spaces, and so we made one for ourselves where we just get to talk about what we want to talk about, where we don't have to like bro down like I mentioned before. And it has been really fun. And Samantha is a much better producer than I am for live shows. She like is she her brain works like that, and she like steps up to the plate. So we've produced 2 live shows with Two Jews One Gay. And what's been really, really fun about that is we've found an audience that doesn't usually, we don't usually get to access through normal stand-up. Queer, you know, like political, but like also like depressed, twisted women, you know. And so that has been really fun to be able to play to an audience that like I usually only dream of being able to play to.
Yeah, and I want to commend you for that, for creating that space also, and that show and the that you did at Mic Drop, because it was a live podcast. I think that you sold out the main room, right?
So we sold out our first one, we sold out the gold room, and then they moved us to the main room. And so then we sold some more tickets. We didn't sell out the main room. I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
still, you moved to the main room, and that's great. I saw some of those clips, and I was like, those are. It looked like such a unique and like fun idea.
And it like part of it is like being able to do like non-stand-up but with these stand-ups, and I think that's what I like. I'm finding, like, even saying it out loud, I've said it a couple times, but like getting stand-ups to be creative but in a non-straight stand-up space is also really fun. I like collaborating, and so any chance that I can is such a gift. But yeah, for those shows, we usually end them with a game where we pretty much just ask questions that we decide the right answer to. And they're usually queer focused or politically focused, or like, you know, like Mary Fuck Kill, like Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And, you know, we'll have people like Brandon Potter, like, who just says the funniest, every word that
So
comes
funny.
out of his mouth is so unhinged and so comedically genius. So, like, giving him a platform to be able to just, like, say those things off the cuff. And, like, on that show was also Tatiana Gucci. It was just so, so funny. Um, so that, yeah, those are really fun. It kind of is like a playground that we get to make the rules, and we're both oldest daughters, so we love being bossy and kind of like making people play by our rules a little bit. So that, yeah, that those are really fun.
Yeah, so happy early birthday to your little sister who shares the
Oh my
same
gosh.
birthday as me.
Oh yes. Oh my God, are you December 14th?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Okay.
yeah.
Right, right. And you both are youngest sisters, and you're both Sagittariuses. I think you're less of a menace than she is.
Now, thank God.
Yeah. You come a long way. And honestly, she's starting to chill out a little bit too. She actually just talked to me about like wanting to be sober forward, like not fully sober, but lead a like not my family drinks a lot, like
Mhm.
socially, and like whenever I go and visit, like I like I'm like, guys, you guys like drink so much, and they're like starting to like realize it a little bit, and so I'm proud of them. I
Yeah,
As
I
a
think. Oh,
stoner, I think it's very, very strong of them to have alcohol take a step back from their life. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, even if it's not an addiction thing, you just think people overall just feel better once they take
and
out.
it's Kansas. The Midwest has a problem with
Oh, yeah,
substance. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I hope no one from my family's watching, but you know, everything's centered around like meeting up at a bar, especially during the winter, like meeting up at a bar
Oh, yeah.
and like watching a game and getting drunk. Like, it's just, the Midwest is a drunker place. There's less to do when you don't have the beach or like a hike or whatever. People
Yeah.
turn to alcohol often.
But have you performed comedy there?
Oh my gosh, one time it was a crazy, crazy experience. It was opening for Steph Tolev, um, and pretty much like me and Steph have like a lot of friends in common through the store and like through Keith and stuff like that. And so I was able to get on that show, and my flight was canceled like 12 hours before the flight was supposed to happen. And I was like so bummed. And like, I'm a poor person at the moment. So rebooking was going to be like $500 that I didn't have. And so actually, Katie Thurston had heard that, like, I was texting her or something like that, and told her, I was like, she's like, are you excited for your show? I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna go because of like this whole thing. And so she went onto her like subscribers live and plugged my Venmo and was like, help this girl achieve her dreams. And I had like I got out of work that night and had $500 in my Venmo from like these random
Oh
kind
my
people with like the
God.
sweetest little notes, like, follow your dreams, like, get your ass to Kansas City. So I was able to go, and it was the first time my family saw me perform because they live in Kansas City, and like my childhood best friend and stuff. And she sold out the rooms, which was cool. But I was so nervous because I really only perform in Southern California, which is like has its own sensibilities and its own like politics and stuff. So
Yeah.
I was nervous that I was going to be a little dirty. I was nervous that I was going to like be a little too like feminist. Like when even when like I sound misogynistic, you I think if you're listening, you can tell that it's coming from like no, like I love women and women are better and we're the best things that I've ever had. And so some people don't like that, but it was so much fun. And Steph is such like high energy and her audiences are so like wild and fun. It was a really, really good experience. That was a comedy club of Kansas City. If anyone's ever there, they put on good shows.
Nice. Yeah, when I took a road trip to Tennessee, I almost drove through Kansas City, and I was like,
Oh my
oh,
gosh, you should go next time. I really
yeah.
loved Kansas City. If I ever get like famous, I want to pull like a Dave Chappelle and like I would move back to Kansas City, like and
Oh, yeah.
live in secret and but then like fly. That's my dream is to be rich enough to do that.
Yeah. Be sweet. I remember from our last interview too that you hadn't performed in front of your family.
I
So what was
know.
it like to do that, and what was their response?
You know, my dad, who is a performer himself, was so anxious about my anxiety because he's like, I know how I would feel if I was you. Like I
Yeah.
can only imagine that you're like about to shit your pants. Um, I will say, like, my mom and my dad, when they were married, like, my mom was often going to like watch my dad in the studio to like he would get guest star roles on sitcoms, and so my mom like was the best at laughing so hard no matter what, like knowing that this was his bread and butter,
Oh,
like that like laugh her laughing got other people to laugh, and like
yeah.
then people watching at home hear it laugh and associate him with the funniness. Like, so my mom like knew she had a job to do. Like I mean, she claims that she thought it was genuinely funny, and my mom is like one
Oh.
of my biggest fans. But she was like, it was a little manic that like I don't think that I was like doing that well. But like, so my mom like was just like cracking up. I know my parents have like very distinct laughs, so like I heard them. And you know
Oh.
what's funny? It was a 2 show night. So I was like, and they came to the first show, and I was like, I have to stay for the second show. Like, I can Uber home. And they bought tickets, and they just came and ran it back and came to the second
Oh,
show
how
again.
sweet.
So they got to see me perform twice, which was cool. And they also learned, you know, what it's like navigating 2 different rooms, but trying to do more or less the same set and all of that. So it was a positive experience, and I'm excited for the next time because I feel like that was probably like 6 months ago. I feel like 6 months, a lot changes, and I I,
That was
I,
6
I
months
hope
ago?
I feel like it was like May or April,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah. It was right.
Like
It was
a
right
year
around
ago.
Christmas. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and my dad, my dad put a lot of pressure on me to like not pursue the arts and like to go into like something more stable because it was really hard for him. And like, my dad's not a household name and he's 83, like, and that's what his dream was. So like he he knows what it's like to like pursue something your whole life and like not get to the point that you always dreamed of. Um but I think now that he's seen me take the leap and stop asking for permission, he like has found a respect for it. I think he knew that as long as I was asking for permission from the people in my life that I wasn't ready,
Yeah.
because you have to be able to just make the call for yourself. Um and so now we like talk about it and stuff like that. He thinks comics are really disrespected, and he
Yeah.
thinks like we need a union and like
Yeah.
because like my dad was like on the board of Actors Equity, which is the stage actors union. And he was just like, because for a long time like actors were looked at as like the help, like like at dinner theaters and stuff like that, like you guys, we were looked at as like the same as like bus boys and everything, which obviously there's esteem in every single job, but like, as a performer, like that's skilled labor, and you want to be treated as such. And he's like, and so look at how comics are treated. Like we are treated like the help so much of the time and dismissed, and you know, like the price for a set has not kept up with inflation, you know, over the last 20 years. And you're often getting paid with a drink or a meal, which, you know, I'm grateful for stage time. Would it be better if, you know, everyone was being paid for their time? Always, yes. But, you know, so yeah, so now my dad and I are able to bond on it in a new way where that's not as rooted in his fear.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree with all of that. It like blows my mind that comics are going, you guys drive everywhere, you go everywhere, you're like up every night, all hours of the night, performing these jokes,
I
and you're
know.
not even like, it's your investment of your time, your gas, your, you know, your energy, and like very few people pay for it. Like you're not
Right.
getting paid for
And
it.
for me, it's like when like the big comics do these money plays, you know what I mean? Like we're talking about Matt Rife, who's now like has like $100 million or whatever. Like, you know, there's real money now. Like I can't be mad at it. When like I don't even like believe in the term, maybe I do, but like selling out or whatever, it's like, oh, you mean making a living off of the thing that put us into poverty for the last decade? Like we like whenever we're able to find a lane to like help us survive, I think like we need to be gracious with people's choice to take that. And I think comics are really mean to each other when we take a money grab that isn't just for the art. And I get it. But like you said, we are going into debt oftentimes. People are living in their cars, people are skipping meals. Like I literally know comics who are losing weight because like they can't afford to eat as regularly as they should. Like yeah, so like if someone's gonna offer me real money and to sell out a little bit, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. And I'm like, to people who are like, well, just get a day job. It's like, yeah, you could get a day job, but then it's
Yeah,
like,
and then you get fired. And how does that
yeah,
feel?
the hour, it's like, there's such, it's just so soul draining. I would imagine if you're not in a place where you can at least be a little bit creative, or it's not just a straight
Yeah.
office job.
And like you spend so much time censoring who you really are in the corporate world. And I think people do that even when they're not comics at night, you know. I think that like we like put on this like we have to spend energy to like be professional often.
Yeah.
And so then when you're like a creative, that's like double or triple, I think. And so I found myself like so exhausted when I was working, especially like in like very white collar corporate America. Like I didn't have energy to be creative. All of my
Mhm.
energy was being taken by other people, and energy is such a finite thing. Um, I so like yeah, like it would a financial planner be devastated to see the state of things right now? Like, yeah, but I have so much more room to be myself. I mean, I am happier. Um, and you know, you can't take it with you. We're all gonna die. Like, that's the thing. It's like I rather like at least do something where like I'm grappling with the meat of being alive and feeling alive all the time instead of just like ignoring the fact that like we're all gonna be in oblivion one day and just like plugging
Amen.
away.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. Have
I
you
know
ever
you're
thought,
an existentialist like me.
for real, I'm just so over capitalism and all of it too. So that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, that's for another time, another podcast.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions because it does cut us off at an hour.
Okay.
As I learned with Kyle Drake, who was like mid sentence one day. Have you ever thought about relocating? Would you ever like permanently? I know you said Kansas City earlier, but
I
just
know.
meanwhile, like LA or Austin or anything like that.
Vanessa, I have my eyes on LA right now. I
Okay, I
do.
thought so. I sensed it.
You did. So here's the thing though, depending on if I can, okay, I won't get into the weeds financially, but we're trying to swing it, me and my boyfriend, who is a professional musician. He's very, very talented. Also, we didn't talk at all about him, but it's been the past since we've met, since we last spoke, I've like gotten out of a relationship that didn't serve me and I'm in this new relationship and it's the first time I'm dating a creative, which sounds like so lame to say, but like someone who also is an artist in their own right and he's very, very talented and well accomplished. That has been so motivating and helpful for me to have a home where that is the energy. Anyways, he also could use like opportunities up in LA. But we have this house here, we have a garden that we love, and we have dogs who go into the
Oh,
garden, which we would not have a garden in LA. So we're trying to like figure out a way, maybe move in with one of his friends and like not glam, like a cheap roommate situation where we're paying for one room and still keeping the place here and doing a bi-coastal, but by coastal I mean LA San Diego like
yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
where we could do both, because I love the energy of Los Angeles. I know a lot of people hate LA. I love LA. I'm originally born in LA. And it's some of like the most magical memories of my life were like before I moved to Kansas. So I romanticize it a lot. I would love to be spending more time there. And there's just like a lot of opportunities. Um, you know, but then there's great stages and stage time, and I have a community here, so I wouldn't want to leave that behind. So I might eye on LA, but it might be a one foot in the door situation. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, we obviously would hate to lose you in San Diego, but I do feel like for some comics, it's usually the next right step, right? And it's just like
Yeah.
some comics that, especially for you, I could absolutely see you just getting even better in LA and really taking all the opportunities that you can
And they
there.
have like their alt scene really intrigues me. And like San Diego doesn't really have an alt scene. We have a few alt people, but like weird comedy, we don't really have that. And I'm really allured and seduced by getting a little weirder. And I just want to like be around those spaces a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely excel in them. So I'm excited. I'll support you wherever you go. I am
Oh,
a
thank
huge fan.
you.
I think that you're
Y-
so funny, and I think that
You're the
you've done
sweetest.
so much for San Diego comedy. I know a lot of comics from all diverse, backgrounds and all diverse comedy of their own. They all think that you're so funny, and it's just like,
Oh,
again, that's a really unique comic who can speak to so many different audiences. So
well,
I
thank
love your
you for saying that.
comedy,
That's
and I'll
very sweet. Thank
absolutely.
you for all you've done for San
Aw,
Diego comedy. Like, you're such an inspiration. It's just someone, you're a mover and a shaker, and it's so cool to see you take something like that's just like an interest and make it into like a community and a place of like where you could promote artists and celebrate artists. And so that's been really cool, and we're all so lucky that you've kind of like created this community. So
thank
right back
you.
at you, Vanessa.
Appreciate it. And I hope I get to see you soon. And I just really quick want to read Melissa's question, which is not a question, but she just says, love Sarah. Anyone who's in LA needs to go to Culture Court. She goes every month. And Melissa is in LA, so you should go visit her.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks to everyone for
Thank
joining
you.
in and for your comments. I'm sorry I didn't get to read them all. I have really bad attention. So I was just like focusing, like
Yeah, yeah,
laser
yeah. I
focused
understand.
on Sarah. So thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Sarah, so much. I hope to see you soon.
Bye. Happy